Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Good evening. Here we are at Cannabis TV behind Sheldon High School. We're here every Monday doing our show, and the show shows on Wednesday. So I'm here with DanK, my friend, myself, Reverend Will, and a few people in the audience, which is pretty awesome. We've actually had some good comments about how the YouTube is going and how we actually hit 100 people.
Yes,
we're
getting a good count, good response, and some good people are commenting on the show. So something we've been wanting to do for a long time, to get it on the internet. We're finally on the net for people who don't have to subscribe to cable to be able to watch it.
Right,
so.
And thank you to the man in the booth.
Yep, that's right.
Kevin has been awesome in making that happen. We want to give him kudos. And Shay, who's been here continuously doing the camera and making it happen for us.
These are people you don't see that are behind the camera and behind the scenes that are making it happen. So if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be. It'd just be us, and there wouldn't be any show.
Speaking of that, if it's up to this guy Dwight Holton, we're not going to be doing this. And there's a whole lot of other things we won't be doing either. So we have this article here that's talking about this text that was going to be going on KPOJ. It will hit KEX before long and other stations as funding allows. So we have this, it's called Dwight Holton, candidate for Attorney General, is drawing fire from Citizens for Sensible Law Enforcement, the group that helped pass Oregon's medical marijuana law in 1998. I wonder where they've been all this time. A new radio spot begins airing today. The CSLE radio spot called Good Choice features a man and a woman, imagine that, discussing the options for Attorney General. It begins its run this week on KPOJ AM, a progressive talk show station. This 60-second ad points out that Holton is from Virginia and gets most of his campaign money from out of state. Hear that, folks, hear this, because this guy is a sly dog, let me tell you. While Ellen Rosenblum has been a prosecutor and judge in Oregon for 36 years, the ad further mentions that Holton has never tried a case in Oregon State Court. He also was called on this at the meeting that a friend of mine, Joe, and I went up to, and another friend, Mark. We went up there and listened to Jim Gregg ask this man very pertinent questions about what happened in Southern Oregon when he was the representative for the federal government who allowed the feds to come into Southern Oregon and bust people. Okay, now, when you think about that, if these people were not in compliance, why were they not busted by the state? And when are we going to get an attorney general in there who's going to stand up to the federal government and get them out of our business without having them follow through on their blackmail scheme, which is that if you don't listen to us, then we're going to take our money away from you. Well, for those who know better, we actually have an opportunity to have marijuana pick up all the slack that the federal government's going to take away from you if you'd ever listen to us. You don't need to have somebody holding you accountable by blackmailing you and by colluding to create and colluding totally with the Food and Drug Administration to keep marijuana so that it cannot be out there as an industry. You know, that's really, really looked upon badly because it's called a monopoly. When you have the federal government who is controlling this by having pharmaceutical companies, lobbyists, giving up all this money to these legislators in order to vote in the kind of things where the Food and Drug Administration, look at their track record, folks. They have to put a list of things of ingredients on the sides of things because their side effects are so bad. Yet they allow cigarettes to be sold and they don't allow patients to get their medicine. Interestingly enough, when we say patients getting their medicine, it's interesting because is it really a medicine? Because doctors can't prescribe it.
You're talking about marijuana now.
Yes. Did I skip something?
No, I just make sure everybody's following you.
Yeah, I know. It is kind of hard because I do get upset and then I jump around. But what we're saying is the Attorney General here, this guy who wants to be, Holton, is really trying to circumvent our system by beating Ellen in the primary.
Ellen Rosenblum, right. And if you missed last week's show, we talked a little bit about last week. So we have a unique situation in Oregon. The incumbent Attorney General is not running for re-election due to health problems. There is no Republican really a challenger, but there are 2 Democrats. However, Dwight Holton was Republican, but he registered the Democrat so that he could run in the primary. And so now he's running against Ellen Rosenblum. And like Will was saying, we're talking about the guy with the out-of-state funding that's never been tried a court case in the state of Oregon, wants to be Attorney General of Oregon. And here we have a judge with 36 years of experience in the Oregon courts, and she's pro-medical marijuana. She supports medical marijuana. There's some articles that I read today I didn't get a chance to publish. She's gone on tour. She went on tour of a co-op, medical co-op, and it's very open to medical marijuana. So it's really important. So those of you Democrats are going to be have a chance to vote in the primary, and that's the choice. And whoever wins the primary is pretty much going to shoot in to be the Attorney General. Is going to be the Attorney General. So it's really important that we get Ellen Rosenblum in. And we say Dwight is not right for the job.
Right. I mean, this man, Bob Wolf, who's the director of CSLE, put it really well when he said, "We can defeat Dwight Holton by explaining quite simply who he is and what he believes. This is not complicated. Holton is not from Oregon, has no experience in Oregon state courts, and shows clear disrespect for law approved by Oregon voters." Wolf concluded Dwight Holton might be a great Republican candidate who's running as a Democrat, but there is no reason for Democrats to elect him. Now, you know, when we saw him, there were great questions that were directed at him. By one person actually got to ask questions at this event we were at, and he asked a 3-part question. And the first part was if he were the Attorney General, would he stand up to the federal government? He didn't have a response for that. He was even called on it, and he still didn't respond on it. The second part of the question was whether or not these renegade or rogue sheriffs who were saying, "I don't care what the marijuana law is, this is how it is in my part of the country, in my part of Oregon." Those people need to be reeled in, and he didn't really say anything about that either. The third part of the question, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was also good. So I'm sorry that I don't remember that, but Jim Gregg did a great job of asking the questions and holding him to task. The man still didn't answer, and that's why I say he's a sly dog, trying to circumvent this like that, to get in here and to beat her in the primary so that he doesn't have anyone to run against in the general election. So I'm really hoping you all pay attention to that, because you had an opportunity to change your parties to Democrats so you could vote, but that's passed us by.
Correct. So if you are a registered voter, Democratic voter, please be sure and vote in the primary and put in a vote for Ellen Rosenblum.
Please.
We don't want Dwight in there. Dwight is not right for the job.
Dwight is not right for this job. And understand that, you know, to us, he is a federal agent who is put in here to try and circumvent an already poor law. This law is supposed to have been interpreted by the Attorney General. That's the Attorney General's job. And yet we still are not getting our medicine. Understand that. That card that we have to pay for does absolutely nothing to get me a toke or a joint or a bowl to help me with my pain. It doesn't get me a vaporizer. It doesn't get me a tincture. It doesn't listen to the fact that we have PTSD for veterans and for spousal abuse that goes on all the time. And one other thing when we talk about this, we have one of the best football teams in the country, okay? And they run at light speed. In order to do that, they have to be on top of everything that they're doing out there. In addition to that, they have to pass their classes. And in addition to that, a lot of them have to do sponsorship things where they go around and they're continuously giving of themselves. Now, if some of these people choose to relax by smoking herb, it should be something that's looked at as a blessing, because they're not doing prescription drugs, they're not smoking cigarettes, and they're not drinking their butts off. To me, they should be applauded for what they're doing, and they should be allowed to stand up and let you know that that's how they relax, that's how they deal with their stress, and it should be allowed. That's just my own personal opinion. It's not the opinion of the station or anybody that's connected with me. But I believe that totally. And I love our football team, and I'm so proud of them for having that as their choice of the least harmful.
Now we need the Michael Phillips letter that he should have sent.
Michael Phelps, yep.
The letter he should have sent. You remember that you read that on the air?
Yeah, man. I mean, Michael Phelps.
I can't remember who wrote that letter, but somebody wrote a letter and it was titled "The Letter That Michael Phelps Should Have Written."
Right, because I mean, 8 gold medals. Who has the right to tell somebody who has 8 gold medals how to relax? And that's what he's doing, folks. Understand. You who don't do this do not understand that stress is the underlying exacerbator of all of the diseases and illnesses that we have out there. And the reason that we are not looking as bad as we should for all of the injuries and disabilities that we have is because of marijuana. And you just can't believe it, can you? Okay. Well, I believe that we're close to wrapping this up, are we? Or do we have enough time?
Oh, we've got a little bit of time here yet. We're coming down to the end, but yeah.
Okay.
A lot of the feedback about the marijuana, football players using marijuana is, we're in Oregon, hello. This is Eugene, hello.
Right, but understand, folks, if you know what it's like to be part of a football team and have all these people who are working together and stuff, and here we are trying to bring in a divisive agent at this point in time and say, well, you shouldn't be able to smoke herb. So what? So these people start drinking or they start doing prescription drugs so they can sleep and then they don't do as well? You're not going to be happy. Understand? They start losing because they're not able to relax like they want to. You're going to be looking back at this and saying, God, we should have listened to them friggin' potheads. They did know what the hell they were talking about. So now we're getting close to the end of this segment of the show.
You bet. So we're going to wrap up and slide out of here, and we'll be back with some more news and information. We've got a real dynamite letter from our friend Joe Canfield. So we'll be right back.
Thank you.
And now a message from the American Marijuana Growers Association.
Hi, I'm a farmer, and I work hard every day to grow high-quality marijuana, the biggest cash crop in these United States. I'd like to thank you for your support of U.S. marijuana policy. Because marijuana is illegal, I don't have to pay taxes. Even better, prohibition leads to artificially inflated prices, which means a better quality of life for me and my family, as long as I don't get caught. Just as importantly, your tax dollars support thousands of U.S. agents who work tirelessly to keep low-grade, foreign marijuana out of our country. So thank you, America. And remember, whether you're nauseated from chemotherapy or just in the mood for a nice cool buzz, choose the best pot in the world, American homegrown.
Well, folks, here we are. We're back at Cannabis TV here in Eugene, Oregon, behind Sheldon High School. And we have a letter from one of our followers, and his name is Joe Canfield. And I hope I do this letter justice. At first sight, it may seem that pain is the greatest obstacle to the arising of a new consciousness in humanity. Pain occupies your mind, controls and distorts your thinking, disrupts your relationships, and feels like a dark cloud that occupies your entire energy field. Pain tends to make you unconscious, which means totally identified with mind and emotion. Pain makes you reactive, makes you say and do things that are designed to increase the unhappiness within yourself and the world. Whenever you get taken over by pain, whenever you don't recognize pain for what it is, pain becomes part of your ego. Whatever you identify with turns into ego. Pain is one of the most powerful things the ego can identify with, just as pain needs the ego to renew itself through it. That unholy alliance, however, eventually breaks down in those cases where pain is so heavy that the ego mind structures, instead of being strengthened by pain, are becoming eroded by the continuous onslaught of pain's energy charge. In the same way that an electric device can be empowered by an electric current, but also destroyed by it if the voltage is too high. I'll express this plainly and simply by saying I'm fed up with being unhappy. Safe and legal access to marijuana is a no-brainer. So thank you, Joe.
Yeah, that's dynamite. Yep, sounds like it is. Pain is the single largest thing that patients are using medical marijuana for, and it's 60% in the state of Oregon, and that's very, very close to the nationwide also.
Well, you know, part of the reason that we don't have PTSD is because they say that they don't want to get into the brain area as far as being able to denote whether or not pain is real. Well, pain is real. If a patient is telling you that they're in pain, they're in pain. And I don't understand how it went from where the patient used to be the person who was responsible for their medications, was responsible for telling the doctor the whole truth. And understand, folks, when you're telling people that you don't count, and then you tell them you cannot talk about their medications, then how can you go into a doctor and tell him that your medications have been cut in half by yourself because you don't want to be a vegetable, you don't want to be sitting on a couch forever, you don't want to not be able to get up out of bed. And those are the kind of things that happen when you're over-medicated. So when you use marijuana to cut that medication in half, and then you can't tell your doctor that you've done that and done it successfully, he's making judgments on bull information. So, I mean, I don't know how you can make an accurate assessment when you can't tell him what you're doing to help you. For instance, my friend Philip, who's been on dialysis, 25 years this man's been on dialysis. Most people don't make it 2 to 5 years. That's dying within 2 to 5 years. This man's been on this for 25 years, and he has tried to tell everybody connected with him that it's because of the marijuana, and they don't want to hear it. That's insane. So
running from the cure, that's what they call it.
Running from the cure. That's it, right. So we have some good news, though, from here, this jury statute.
Yes, jury nullification. I've been knowing about this for years, and it's been kind of the back burner, and it brought it up close when I was at Danbo's trial and saw some things that went on there. And jury nullification is extremely important. I've made up some, printed up some pamphlets, have one at our booth now to hand out to people. We're always looking for people that would like to go down at the courthouse and hand out these pamphlets. And that's what this letter here, or article here is about. This is a big breakthrough. It says, jury statute not violated by protester, judge rules. This is, and interestingly, this is the day before April 20th, right. April 19th. The next time the 80-year-old retired chemistry professor takes his protest to the plaza outside the federal courthouse in Manhattan, he may make it home without being locked up. A federal judge on Thursday ordered the dismissal of an indictment against the professor, Julian P. Heichelman, who had been charged with jury tampering for advocating the controversial position known as jury nullification while outside the courthouse. Mr. Heichelman had repeatedly stood with a jury info sign and handed out brochures supporting nullification. The view that jurors who disagree with a law may ignore their oaths and vote to acquit a defendant accused of violating it. Prosecutors said such advocacy, directed as it is to jurors, would be both criminal and without constitutional protections, no matter where it occurred. But the judge, Kimba M. Wood of Federal District Court wrote that a person violated the jury tampering statute only when he or she knowingly tried to influence a juror's decision through a written communication made in relation to a specific case pending before that juror. Judge Wood added that she would not stretch the interpretation of the statute to cover speech that was not meant to influence a juror's actions in a specific case. Mr. Heichelman expressed pleasure at the ruling. Not just for me, he said, I think it's a major decision for the country. He added, this is better than having them throw me in jail. Mr. Heichelman had contended that he did not try to influence specific jurors. Rather, he handed out brochures to anyone who passed by, hoping jurors were among them. Mr. Heichelman, who acted as his own lawyer, that's another plus, wow, was assisted by two lawyers, Sabrina Shroff and Stephen M. Statzinger of the Federal Defender's Office. Ms. Shroff said she was pleased by the ruling. The right to speech is just so fundamental, she said. Prosecutors declined to comment on the ruling. And, excuse me. He said, Christopher Dunn, Associate Legal Director for the New York Civil Liberties Union, said the ruling freed Mr. Heichelman to resume his activities outside the courthouse at 500 Pearl Street. And this is the part that I like the best. But it has a much broader impact, he said, because there are people all around the country who do exactly what he was doing, and under this ruling, they will no longer face the threat of prosecution.
And right, just to fill in up here, one thing they talked about was the prosecutors who declined to comment on the ruling. But in a hearing earlier, a month earlier, a prosecutor called Mr. Heichelman's advocacy a significant and important threat to our judicial system. So this is one of the things we talked about before, was how with all of these things, like with Dambo's case, where the judge kept saying, well, we're all so busy and we're all doing so much, so let's hurry up and go through this process. And one of his big things in that whole thing was to slow them down so that they had to go through these processes, like the nullification process. So it is incredibly important, and we honor this man for what he did. That is incredible. Thank you for making a difference for all of us. We do appreciate it tremendously.
That's right, and you can find the information yourself. Just any search engine, just type in jury nullification, and you get all the information you need on it. And we definitely need to educate. I hate that word, educate the public. It sounds like we got a propaganda, but anyway, we do need to educate people. So.
It is educating them though, because they don't know. I mean, right now in the state of Oregon, we're sitting here. We have schools that are losing their teachers and stuff, and here we have people who may smoke pot, but they also want to do a whole range of things in order to create money, and the state is the instigator in stopping us in this process.
Including even want to work for a wage, but they can't because they got to pee in a bottle and they wouldn't pass the test.
Right. So, I mean, it's just insane that you talk about educating people. It's just getting them to understand that what's happening is your government's lying to you, period.
Yep, the government's lying. So don't forget, jury nullification. So we got one last story that we want to talk about here. 420 for freedom. It's a few days after our 420th holiday. Will and I went to the Bulb Ranch, their annual 420 party,
right.
And that was a great time. And this is a report from Indianapolis, Indiana, a normal group up there. We got a great picture of the group standing there, and this is. It says, here we are, the day of the year of those who willfully, even gleefully, violate a law that the majority of adults have broken at least once. The law that needs to be broken frequently.
Right.
The closest we know about the origin of 420 is a group of San Rafael, California high school students with a connection to the Grateful Dead used the phrase as code for getting high. The Huffington Post has a good explanation of the whole story. The celebration of 420 is now worldwide and ranges from private parties to major public events. It has become the day the mainstream media actually mentions the word marijuana. And we're starting to see some rather positive coverage of 420 events. Even gasp honest to goodness debates and news about cannabis, hemp, marijuana. But why have the high holy day, or rather, how do we have it? It's yet another indicator that those who enjoy the herb and have enough sense to realize the anti-freedom position of government is detrimental to all of our freedoms have coalesced into a culture all of its own.
See, that's really important, folks. You really, really need to understand that. Anti-freedom. For myself, people have asked me why I've lost 2 families, why I've gone to jail over this issue, marijuana. It's not about marijuana, it's about freedom. I don't have the freedom to make my own choice about how I relax. Okay, and you really don't like seeing me when I'm not relaxed. So you really would want me smoking herb. And there's a whole lot of us vets and stuff who are back here, who are sitting here and we're not happy with what the government's doing. We're not happy with how the VA is taking care of people. We're not happy, period. And the only thing that makes us happy and tolerate what's really going on is marijuana. I mean, understand the government knew it because if the Vietnam War, the government was the one who brought all the pot into the country so that the vets would be able to have it, so they wouldn't be as angry as they were and the people wouldn't be as angry as they were about how the government was treating people then. So now they're pissed because we learned how to grow it and take care of it ourselves, so we don't need them in any way, shape, or form, and they don't like that. So that's why they control us. 12 inches. 12 inches is like what we're supposed to be using for growing. I mean, come on. You don't do that with tomato plants.
What you're talking about is the size limit of the plant. If it's over 12 inches high and 12 inches in diameter, it's considered an adult plant.
And so you get mites. You know, what happens? Then you're all shut down and you have absolutely nothing that you can get to your patient, and there's no one who's going to help you.
Or for one day to the next, you could go up above that 12-inch and boom, you're in violation. So.
Right.
So anyway, this is Indiana Normal, talking about the 420, and this is a note that the guy that wrote the article, Neil, he wrote this little personal note. He said, "We had a lot of good things in spite of bad weather. For 420 in Indiana," he said, "excellent turnout from our crew in Muncie, Indiana, at the Water Bowl. We marched with our brothers and sisters of Re-Legalized Indiana PAC in downtown Indy and got some good local press at the Mousetrap Bar in Indianapolis." So, yeah, there were 420 celebrations all over the world. So, anyway, we're coming up May 5th. It's the Global Marijuana March. Stay tuned. We got to be a go. So, thanks, Reverend Will, for being here again, and thanks, Joe, for being here, and thanks for the letter, and we're out of here.
Peace.
Have you ever met that funny reefer man? Oh, that funny, funny, funny reefer man. If he trades you dimes for nickels, he says watermelons are pickles. You know you talking to that reefer man. Or have you ever met that funny